All right, now we're moving on to the depth chart. Well, what's really great about the depth chart is depth is really talking about how far forward in the mix or how far back in the mix sound is, and it's a combination of both how much effect is put on it, how much maybe ambient miking is put on it, as well as how tucked away is it in the mix, but yet still audible. And so it's that combination. And what we're going to do with this though is we're going to combine the depth of the perceived depth and analysis of a song along with the two elements that we've already done up to this point, which are the panning chart, which gives us the left, the right, the center positions, and our frequency chart, which gives us high to low. And this essentially is a lot more generalized because it really there's no numbers, there's no, really pinpointing. There is a left, there is a right, there is a center. And then the low to high essentially is going to be your sub, bass, mids, highs. And then in order to get the depth is really based upon the size. So bigger things are closer and smaller things are a little bit more kind of boxed down into this lane in the background. So they're further away, so perceivably further away. So what we should see, this is an analysis of the same song, so you could see it. If we remember, our frequency conversation and our panning conversation highlighted two major things. In panning, we realized that there's a lot going on in left and right. They're not hard left and hard right. They're spread out over left and right. And then there's a very clear center lane. And there's a very clear group of people that are handling that center lane. We see lead vocals, bass, kick, snare, and strings kind of wide, and then acoustic guitar left and right kind of wide. But then essentially they're more down the middle, and as more of the band jumps in throughout the rest of the song, we actually get wider as we go. Well, that essentially analysis of the same song would represent that in almost the same way, where we see a lot of those things more tucked in towards the middle. So you could see right down the middle, we see strings, vocals, snare, kick, embodying these spaces, right? Additionally, when we looked at the frequency analysis, we also saw something that was actually pretty critical, and it was that in the verses kind of tightened down, and that bridge break really collapsed to just the mids. And when we would go big, instead of just going big with volume or instrumentation, we would specifically go big in sonic range, essentially. So frequency range that we're using, essentially by bringing in more lows and bringing in more highs in those other sections. So then again, at the very first verse, you notice, and we're going to listen through it so you can see it again, lead vocal is down here in the middle. Acoustic guitar is down here in the middle. Piano at the beginning, the first chorus is down here in the middle. And the electric guitar, they're kind of in that mid-high, and they're really focused in that range. And when we go to the depth analysis, we're going to represent frequency from low to high. So again, we see, the kick is here, the snare is here, vocals, strings, cymbals are way up high, and they're far out left and right. But we also notice this acoustic guitar is left and right, but it's about in the mid. And if we can, again, go back to the instrumentation of the first verse, it is literally just acoustic guitar and vocal. And you can see that those are really seated in roughly the same range in that mid area, along with piano, which eventually enters. And then you see the kick and the cymbals, the drums essentially come in and fill that big space, right? So we're going to come in and fill that big space up on top and down below. Now let's get to the depth analysis, okay? So we're looking out specifically for what things are close and what things are far, and we're combining them with what we kind of already saw in both the panning and the frequency chart. And again, we're taking that frequency chart now vertically from low to high as we look at this. This is a very broad summary right here. But in order to get to this chart, to be able to start, we're going to do a few things that are super easy, some easy steps along the way. First thing we're going to do is grab your ruler, and you're going to go to the corner, and you're essentially going to line up as if you were going to draw from corner to corner, from this corner to the opposite corner down below. And you're going to draw a 4-inch line. So you're just going to take it 4 inches and stop. And I think I overshot that just a little bit. Now we'll take it to the other side, that opposing corner. So it's hard to see that extra sheet. And we're going to line that up from there as well. Line it up with the line across the way. And 4 inches there, and we're good. Now what we're going to do is the same thing this way. And we're lining it up. Boom. And we got one more to do. So again, we're trying to get that line nice and easy. Lined up with across the way. If you have just a giant ruler or some straight edge with some measurement markings on it, it might make it easier, but we're trying to hit that 4. And the reason we're trying to hit 4 is because that allows us to start building our 3D room. Kind of looks like the trenches of the Death Star from A New Hope, for those of you who like Star Wars. And there we go. Now all of a sudden we're starting to get that box set up in the middle. Great. All right. Now, as always, you're going to put your name on this. You're going to put the title of the song. But because of all the activity that you're going to assume, it might be best to wait till you're completely done with it, with your visual. And you might have to do it a couple times just to get the hang of it. And then at that point, you go, oh, there's an empty space up here. Here, I'll drop my name, title of the song. All right. So let's go ahead and cue off the song. Again, it's the same song as we had used before. So we're using Spinning from Theory of Flight as an example. And yeah, I'm just going to get it started. Put my headphones on, start my analysis. Now immediately you notice these guitars. There's one that just cued off over here. Much smaller. Than these main. I'm sorry. Right. So that vocal's embodying a lot of space in there. All of a sudden we get these E guitar coming out up here. A little smaller, a little further away. The piano feels like it's over this way. Notice we got that kick dead center. That snare's got a lot of verb. It's really right in here, but it's got a lot of verb, so I'd almost say it could be a little bit smaller here. You know. And those toms are actually pretty direct. I mean, these could go down here a little bit. There's like some sort of guitar way out here. Really getting tight. And again, you have BGVs out here. And they're also down below the vocal. Now there's a hat in here. It's not very loud. And then we got those strings, those strings which are nice and wide, still kind of got some depth on them. There's this piano, this weird piano delay way out here in the back. Off to the left, that delay part. Feel how close these vocals are, the vocals on the side? It's like almost right here forward of all this. Almost got a BGV, kind of like, I don't even know how to write it, put it in here. It's like in this space. And those background vocals start off small, but the lead's going to sing it, so it's going to stick back out, up and forward. And the beauty of the way that the end of that song works out is that it almost feels like it's getting sucked away, like it's getting further, like it's going, trailing off into the distance, into that depth and narrowing. So it's like at the very end, I don't even know if there's a sheet in here I can draw it on. You don't have to draw this, but just to give you this kind of sense of, all at once at the very, very end, we get that delay trail. But not only are we seeing it exchange from, we're seeing it go from having this frequency width diminishing down to something much smaller and more narrow in the midband and in the high. We're seeing the volume tail off as well. But what's interesting is then the dimension and this depth, we're really starting to narrow down even further away, kind of into this center lane here. So it's almost like we're landing in this focal point in terms of the depth. But then the one thing that kicks this outside of that dimension that makes it just actually great is that as it resolves, the panning, because we're going to the effects, are kicking wide out left, right. So we're getting a super wide, it's like basically super wide, super narrow, super far away, trail off into the distance. It's a tool that a lot of producers use at the end of a song that basically, if we were to look at the waveform on the master, needs a moment to just clear, but still has some content in it, trailing, so that the listener has a moment to just take a breath and digest like what just happened. Because sometimes like a good, powerful song that makes you think or feel, if it closes too quickly to an end and it's done, then, on Spotify, the next song kicks in. And if it's like a fast song, it's like we're kicked out of the whole feel of that. And so we're just trying to kind of extend that feel, even though we're narrowing it and building it up to almost just having like this, just almost like outer worldly dimension that just makes it have that kind of epicness to it. So it's actually pretty radical. But anyway, there's the depth chart. There's a lot to it. I would suggest that you just trial and error it. Try to, work your way around it. If you have to maneuver or go like, this maybe shouldn't belong here. On one of the things I was just noting, I was like, oh, these toms are nice and left and right, but they're actually, these toms really should be, the toms should be down here. I missed that piece because, this is, and actually tom 1, which is left, is higher than tom 2, because if we're thinking about the frequencies, this one should be up here, this one should be down here. There should be a bit of a difference and a bit of a crossover in this lane right here, but they should be below. So like when we do the stack, we're looking at it going from low to high. We're seeing it go kick, tom, snare. We got hat way up here. We got cymbals way out here, and really embodying, all those pieces kind of in this down low, again, out of the way of the vocal. One of the things you also notice is things look at this. The most beautiful thing about this perspective is everything is revolving around this vocal. Like the vocal is the centerpiece, both in the center versus left and right, both in the high to low in terms of frequency, and in the depth. It's very forward, but it's forward, and it's taken that dominant stage. Are there effects on the vocal? Absolutely, but those effects almost kind of embody like an outer position of it. Like it's almost like you could say, well, there's the vocal, and then there's the vocal effect that's going on around it. That really gives it that depth, or maybe I guess if we're doing a depth chart the right way, this is the vocal, and the vocal effect is out here on the left and the right, but it's because it is left and right, it's embodying that still mid-range lane, but it's left and right and pushed away. But it's in addition to the vocal. It's not just the vocal that's that small. It's like the effects are that small or that distant, giving it that depth, but the vocal is still very present. And that's essentially, when we mix it with the raw track on its own track, and then we have the effects on a separate track, that's really how you get that setup in that way. So that's it. Good luck. Hopefully it works for you.